Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to yet another career guidance interview live here on Zoom. My name is Nhlanhla Mchunu, and I'll be your host on behalf of the Lerato Sokili Foundation. If it's your first time joining us, welcome to the family. And just so you know, the Lerato Sokili Foundation is a non-profit organization. We help high school learners apply to different tertiary institutions. We help them understand different courses and careers, and also help them apply for different bursaries and other sponsors that could be available for funding. So as an organization, we usually go to different schools to give career guidance and interact with the learners. We also physically help them apply to tertiary institutions, for example, through your CAO, which is your Central Applications Office. And we also help them apply for different bursaries, such as your NSFAS bursary. But due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which requires all of us to maintain social distance, as an organization, we have adhered to the COVID-19 regulations and have resorted to actually hosting career guidance interviews online here on Zoom, then posting them to all our social media platforms. So to know more about us, don't forget to tell your friends to follow us on Instagram at Lerato Sokili Foundation, or also like our page on Facebook, Lerato Sokili Foundation. You can also tell them to tell their friends to follow us on Twitter at Lerato Sokulu. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's guest speaker, who is a visionary, an apostle for change, and a seasoned speaker with love for classic English literature, politics, governance, and the law. These are extraordinary interests for a young man who is born and bred in Kwanyuswa, Emakadini, the outer west of Durban, which is a poor resource area where a culture of academics is virtually non-existent and where survival is a driving force. So having made a few TV and radio appearances as current affairs commentator on issues relating to the youth and politics in general, he holds a law degree from the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg and is currently enrolled as a postgraduate candidate at the same university. He has joined in researching and developing projects together with the best world's academics, journalists, activists, officials, and leaders. It does not end there. He is WIT's Emerging Leaders Program, the most influential leader award recipient, and was a member of International Labour Organization in the Asia World Model United Nations, hosted in Thailand, Bangkok in February 2019. He has also sat in WIT's Junction Pty Ltd board as student representative and has sat in the University Students Discipline both as a representative and a panelist. He is a former head of legal and compliance at Vuza Medical Pty Ltd and has recently been appointed as country sales partner at Nyamo Enterprises Solutions, which is an international company whose head offices are in California, USA, and India. He currently sits in Blue Valley Pty Ltd as a board member director of the entity. So committed to using his legal acumen in enhancing good, clean governance, providing legal and strategic advice, which is aimed at improving the lives of fellow South Africans. This is the way, fellow South Africans, of a person who wants for certain to change the fortune of the South African economy and its inhabitants. So please help me welcome Mr. Nhlanhla Mchunu. Good afternoon, Mr. Nhlanhla.
Thank you so much, Nhlanhla. That was a very long welcome. I had no idea my geography is that long.
How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm very well. Pleased to be here. How are you doing?
I am very well, thank you. So first and foremost, thank you so much for taking some time off your very, very busy schedule to be with us today to share some career guidance to our learners.
No, thank you so much for inviting me here. It's good to be here indeed.
Well, I just hope we're going to have a very, very good time.
No, I'm very hopeful as well. I look forward to it. I really look forward to
it. Okay, so without further ado, can you just please tell us a bit about yourself and the cause that you'll be talking to us about this afternoon?
Basically, I think my biography says it all, gives a synopsis of who I am, but just to allude to that, okay. I'm Nhlanhla Mchunu, as you've rightfully mentioned. I'm from Kwanyuswa. In fact, I was taught by Lerato Sokulu in my high school years in Kwanyuswa Comprehensive High School. So I'm her product today. Well, I then continued further to move to Johannesburg to study to further my studies at the University of Witwatersrand, where I've then pursued law. Currently now I am enrolled as a postgraduate student in the very same university. Of course, I'm exploring other ventures as well in making sure that I develop my career and the like. So today I'll be speaking to you about the Bachelor of Laws and how to become a lawyer.
Oh, thank you so much. So
Yeah.
as you mentioned to us that you'll be talking about the Bachelor of Law, better known as the LLB, if I'm not mistaken. So as a law graduate yourself, can you just please share with us what the degree is actually about?
Right, that's a very broad question, right? So I'm going to try and be concise and precise as much as I can.
Okay.
Essentially, the Bachelor of Laws degrees looks at the laws in its broader sense, right? So we look at like how do we then interpret laws? How are laws supposed to be interpreted and supposed to be understood by the society and the people that preside over laws, right? But most importantly, I think a huge or a bulk of our law looks into social justice, right? Social justice looks into images, the injustices of the past, right? So to say, like right here, we are here right now, but where do we come from? What type of injustices have we endured as a society, right, at large? But how then do we use law as a tool by which then we seek to redress those past imbalances and those past violation of your rights? So essentially, we just look at the laws and how best we can, make the society a very conducive space in which all of us can actually enjoy social cohesion and enjoy rights equally. Everyone being, subjected to the law, and everyone being the subject of the law, as I said, but everyone most importantly being a patriotic citizen in respecting the law in its entirety. Yeah.
Oh wow, I don't think someone out there does not understand that, because I myself, I am not a law student, but I totally understand. I totally understand. So can you just please highlight for us the subjects that are required to study this course? You know, for someone who is just matriculated and is looking at their results, can you just share with us the subjects required to do this course?
Brilliant, beautiful. So law is not a lie, as other people would mention it. It's not. So with different institutions in South Africa, 26 universities offer this program, right? So with these different institutions, of course, they've got their own requirements, but generally, you would recommend that a person, has a good command of the Queen's language, which is English. So you have good command of that language. You have to get a fairly reasonable mark with regards to that. And also recommended is the subjects of history, right? So you must be aware of where we come from. Any car that moves forward has rear mirrors to better understand the future by where we come from and what brought us here. So essentially, history is much more recommended. Any other subjects for that matter, I think there is no prerequisite to say this is the subject that you must have taken. But of course, lawyers more often than not, you encourage students at high school to actually take substantive subjects. What do I mean by substantive subjects? Those are theory-based subjects, like your BS, your English, of course, and your tourism, something like that. You know what I'm saying? And maybe not so much of the practical-based subjects like your accounting. Of course, we do accept those people. It won't hinder, the chances of you getting into the program, but it's not so much of a substantive subject, because there you need to engage with content in law. You need to familiarize yourself with the skill and the appetite of reading. So the substantive subjects would help you in that regard to be able to cultivate that skill of having to sit down and consume information and actually read and engage the content and be critical of the content as well. So it teaches you to be a critical thinker more and above everything. So the substantive subjects in high school are very much recommended, I'd suggest.
Thank you so much. Very well said. But I guess having subjects, that are required to study this course is not as important as the points. You understand? Because you can have the subject, but not have the points to be enrolled. So can you just share with us the points, or rather the APS points required to be enrolled for this course? And by SPS, for our learners, we are looking at your points excluding life orientation.
Brilliant, awesome. So I'm going to speak maybe on like bits because I'm not quite familiar with the broader society and other universities. But with bits, we expect you to have a minimum of 43 points, right? You must have achieved in high school 43 points. That's the minimum. So if you are 43, 42 and 41, then you'll be placed on the waiting list, right? And then we see other students that have achieved. Luckily, I achieved about 45 points. So that was more than enough for me to get into the program. So other universities as well, they look at about 38, others 40 and everything of that sort. So it increases as we progress with the years, as well as we improve the curriculum, as well as also the qualification itself is monitored by the law or the legal practice.
No, okay, thank you so much. So, for someone who is very passionate, about law, but did not or does not rather meet the entry requirements, are there other alternatives to studying law if you do not meet the entry requirements for LLB?
All right, this is a very interesting question. I like it. Okay, so before you become a legal practitioner, right? You have to have a minimum of an LLB qualification, which is NQF level 8, right? So that's LLB. Generally, that will take about 4 years, right? 4 years. But if you can't get into that program, right? So there's a Bachelor of Arts. So in this route, you will take subjects like your sociology, your political studies, your anthropology, just a mixture of subjects that you need to take. You can also take what you call BA law, meaning that you are doing subjects that are done at a BA stream, meaning your politics, your anthropology, your sociology, your history, your English literature, and other subjects that are offered. International relations is one of them. But also, you will couple that with law courses, meaning that when you then complete that degree over a period of 3 years, you have completed it with law subjects, right? That would require you to then move into LLB, which would take you 2 years. So in 5 years, you would have had 2 degrees, the BA law that takes 3 years, or the BA that takes 3 years, and the LLB that takes 2 years. I must emphasize on the point that if you take your BA, which is without law subjects, then you have to do a 3-year LLB program after the 3 year. So you get out of varsity with 2 qualifications, but in 6 years. Unlike with BA law, when you've taken BA law subjects and law subjects over a period of 3 years, and then you graduate with BA law, and then you have 2 years more. You can also do it via BCom, right? You can also do it via BCom. You can take BCom General, where you take your economics and so on, your accounting and so on, right? So those subjects as well, it works in the same way as the LLB. A 3-year program, you finish it, and then you branch into a 3-year LLB program. You can also make it like a BCom law, where you take BCom subject together with law subject, you complete it over a period of 3 years, and then you proceed to LLB over a period of 2 years. So these are other alternative ways with which you can actually get into LLB.
Oh, that's awesome. So which institutions actually offer this course? As someone who graduated at the University of Wits, can you just tell us other institutions, that actually offer this course?
Okay, so I know UKZN for a fact offers these programs that I've just mentioned right now. That's my home university, by the way. I used to come back.
Well, we are there for you. We are there
for my PhD or something. Of course, UCT is one of them. UP is also University of Pretoria. University of Zululand as well is one of them. University of KwaZulu-Natal, Rhodes University as well has a program, University of Cape Town, Nelson Mandela University, Northwest University, University of Free State is also one of them. Also Varsity College, I know for the fact that they have the program as well. UNISA as well has the program. University of Johannesburg has a program. So it's a number of I think it's a program that is well, you know what I mean, expanded to all other institutions in the country. More so because we need more lawyers than ever now.
And we do need more lawyers. So, you know, it actually brings us to the fact that, you know, as someone who grew up in a very poor resourced area, you know, especially when it came to education, which was at KwaNyuswa, Emakadeni, I'm sure that you have witnessed a very, very high rates of unemployment. And, you know, nowadays you find that very few people are unemployed because they're unqualified, but a very, very large number of people in South Africa as a whole are qualified, they have degrees, but they are unemployed, which makes me come to think that as young people in particular, it's important to actually, you know, look at the employability of whatever cause we are thinking of considering, and not just at the points, you know, that you need to be enrolled with, which may be low. So as a Bachelor of Law graduate yourself, can you just please tell us more about the employability of this course, you know, because I guess it's very important to look at the employability, because now you find very, very, very many people having degrees but sitting at home unemployed. So how is it an advantage to have a law degree?
Thank you so much. A very, very good question as well. The issue of employability, in fact, it goes across all boards, right? Because you look at the unemployment rates in South Africa, and it's just shocking numbers. You know what I mean? More so because you've got people that are unskilled and they're unemployed, but more above everything else, like you've got people that are skilled. You know what I mean? As you rightfully put it, but still are sitting at home with their qualifications, right? So now with a law degree, you can actually get anywhere, right? Like you're not only limited to being an attorney. So let me tell you something. When you graduate with an LLB, you automatically become a lawyer. You become a lawyer. So what does that mean? It means you can give legal advice. That means the states can actually like employ you to actually be a legal advisor of an entity of some sort. You can actually go to a private sector and be a legal advisor. Remember, you only become a legal advisor. You don't go so far as appearing in court, because at that time you do not have the right of appearance. So you can go actually anywhere with a law degree. You can be a company secretariat and everything of that sort. Hence, right now you find that I've sat in many board, what you call in many boards of entities because of
that degree.
Of that degree. Yeah. So you can become an attorney as well, but that requires you to have undertaken a 2 year of clerkship. So these are called articles. You know what I mean? So you go into that route of becoming a kind of attorney, and then you branch into a private sector, and then you can actually appear in court, high court, magistrates court. You can also go into advocacy, right? Which will then mean that immediately after your LLB, you enroll for 6 months, right, of under the supervision of a senior advocate, where you would learn advocacy skills and the advocacy procedures. So you can then become an advocate. Like myself, you can even serve in boards, you know what I mean, as a compliance an officer to say, does this business comply with the law? Does this, you know what I mean? So you can sit in many positions with the law degree. As I said, in health, you can go to help people right now, medical negligence of maladministration as well. You can investigate that. You can go into the ombudsman. There's just a plethora of careers that you can undertake with a law degree.
Oh, wow.
But most importantly, I'm so sorry, but
no,
just to add on quickly. But most importantly, I think also we need to redefine, excuse me, we need to redefine how we think of jobs and careers as well. I think at this point we have got an emergence of the fourth industrial revolution. There are universities right now. I know BITS for a fact is one of the universities that is now offering information technology law. It is IT law. So there is a new law that is coming to the fore right now in order to cater for that fourth industrial revolution. So as a lawyer, you can actually take that course and you can actually write a paper on that course, can actually conduct research on that course, and then you can become a consultant for IT companies, for software companies, and you can actually generate your own income by becoming an independent consultant in that regard.
Oh, wow. Oh, you know what? I'm actually thinking of changing my degree. I want to be a lawyer now. I want to... So thank you. So, so moving on. So in your bio, you mentioned a lot about wanting, I quote, to change the fortune of the South African economy and its inhabitants, close quotes. So as someone who was born and bred in a place where survival is a driving force, I'm sure you witnessed lots of challenges that us as Black people living in Black societies, go through on a day-to-day basis. So when you were given an opportunity to dream big and find ways to change the fortune of South African economy and its inhabitants and study further, you could have chosen anything, but you chose to study Bachelor of Law. Can you just share with us why you chose to study Bachelor of Law out of anything actually that you could have studied, and how is it going to help you change the lives of South Africans as you vision?
Thank you so much. And as you mentioned it before, I could have chosen anything. At some stage, I wanted to become a president.
Wow.
Then I meant, no, in politics to become president, you can't just enter by a back door. And then I thought, and then I looked at all the presidents, I look at all the presidents, most of them, not all. I look at most of the presidents that are influential and that have got, that have had a huge role to play in terms of like social justice. And then I figured out that they're actually lawyers, They graduated from the School of Law, So I then thought to myself, you know what? In fact, I must be a lawyer first, Because law, as I said, governs society. Everything that is actually implemented in society, every policy must be a subject of the law. Nothing is above the law, right? So law is very influential because you get to set the laws that are particularly made to redress the imbalances of the past. So when I grew up and saw those injustices in Kwanyuswa, so I said, it is not normal for a Black person to stay in Kwanyuswa and for a white person to stay in Hillcrest. That is not normal. There's an abnormal situation. But how do we then begin to do that? For instance, there is a policy right now that says if you live within a certain radius, you can't take your child to school that is beyond that radius. You understand? Meaning that you are
limited,
determining exactly where the child should go. And that's when we come in as lawyers to say, we need to litigate this, we need to look into this. What does this act seek to achieve? And what is our vision as a country? If we want to build an inclusive society where really the freedom to education and the right to education is actually realized. And then we come in, we interpret that law and say, there's an injustice that happens in here. When people are being returned on COVID-19, we must step in there and say, on what basis are these people being entrenched? Because now when you retrench them, not only are you threatening their livelihoods, but you are also threatening their humanity, them being a people and existing in society. That's when we come in as lawyers to interpret. So largely a bulk of my dream was to actually interpret social justice. So how do we then contribute to social justice? How do we then make laws that respond to the current society today? Like for example, you have the Nhlanhla case, the famous case that every lawyer look at the Nhlanhla case, it says the state does not have the right to kill a person. You understand? That is because of what we experienced during the colonialism and the apartheid government and many, many years ago, where people were killed without a fair trial. So that's why we come in to say everyone has a right, there's a presumption of innocence until proven otherwise. But we must be there to protect those rights. The rights of children, the rights of women. GBV right now is very privileged in society. But how do we then step in to make sure that mitigate the effect of GBV, that we eradicate completely GBV in its entirety? And we need lawyers, we need sound legal minds who are going to contribute to the social justice project.
Oh, very well said. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And, that was very uplifting. And it actually brings us to my next point. So young as you are, you've participated in a lot of things, just to name a few, you've joined in researching and developing projects together with the best world's academics, journalists, activists, officials, and leaders. You've sat in the university student discipline, both as a representative and a panelist. You were a member of International Labour Organization in the Asia World Model United Nations, and the list goes on. But on top of everything, you hold a Bachelor of Law degree, and I'm certain that in all these commitments that you've made, and some that that you are still making, you faced and still are facing lots of challenges. So can you just please share with us some of the challenges you have encountered throughout your career, but more especially, since we are speaking to a learner who is considering Bachelor of Law, can you just share with us some challenges that you also encountered while you were still studying Bachelor of Law, and how did you actually, overcome those challenges?
Thank you so much. That's a very pertinent question to ask and to attend to, because on my first test at Wits University, when I got to Wits, my first ever law test, I got 8%. Yes.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
I got 8%, and that could have driven me home, But you then begin to realize that the goal is bigger, the picture is bigger, right? Because I'm here now, I'm seated in the classroom where for the first time ever, I'm actually sitting next to a white person. I've never sat with a white person in the classroom, right? Where the media where I'm from is Zulu. So now for the very first time, I have to articulate myself in English, and I have to drive my point across in English, not only to the lecturer, but also to my fellow colleagues whom I'm seated with in the classroom, right? Not only in speech, but also in writing, you understand? So I have to be there and compete with people that went to St. Mary's, that went to Kersney College, that went to St. John's, that went to Crawford. I had to compete with those people solely because of where I come from, right? But at the end of the year, I was a tutor for all these learners I've just mentioned here from all.
Oh, wow.
I'm saying to you, the point I'm trying to drive home here is you would face challenges, one, because of race, the color of the skin, Black.
True.
You are not competing at a level with which other counterparts in your level are competing, right? Other people will come from IED schools, and you will come in from a Department of Basic Education kind of like system. So in that system, we know there are still like critics around that system, but the issues of self-confidence and self-esteem then come into fore. But the more you speak in the classroom, the more you engage with the lecturer, then the lecturer sees potential. The lecturer then takes you in under their wings, and they guide you, and they sort of mentor you as well to become. To become the person that you've always envisaged yourself to be. So obviously, issues of self-esteem, issues of reading, because I had not developed the skill of reading. So I had, for the first time ever, I had to read a case that is about 100 pages. In my first year, I had never read before. What do you mean? I've only read Begitili and Budelowazi, you understand? So those are the books that I've been reading. Now I have to read a judgment. It's written in English with big words. I have to constantly refer to the dictionary. So the issue of vocabulary as well comes into play. So the more you read, the more you expand your level of thinking. The more you read, the more you expand your vocabulary. The more you engage with fellow students and understand the dynamics as well that outplay themselves in society. Whether you have a friend who's white, whether you have a friend who's Indian, who's Chinese, who's colored, who's Black, engage those people, because there is a certain type of a society that we want to build in South Africa right now that is rooted in the unity of our diversity. Say, in our diversity, we are united. And this is kind of South Africa that we wish to build.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm actually inspired. I can tell that it hasn't been an easy journey. So, can you just please share with us some of your driving forces, that helped you to overcome your challenges, or rather, what drove you or still drives you so that you don't give up, even when, giving up crosses your mind?
Thank you so much. I mean, first and foremost, the issue of education. So one of the organizations that I've written like papers on is the issue of working in hand with the equal education kind of like organization where we look at how to then ensure access to all students. Also, I've looked right now. I'm busy. You would know there's a court case right now going on regarding the right to die. So I'm a strong proponent that people should be given the right to die. If they so wish to die, they should be given that right to die. Of course, under strict circumstances. I've written a paper on that as well, the driving force, but more so the issue of social justice. I'll keep mentioning this because really it is my passion and it is what drives me right now. Issues of social justice to ensure that right now there are protests happening around the country with regards to university students wanting to access the system. Also, on the very same hand, they are being arrested, you know what I mean, and they're being persecuted for those
Yeah.
protests or those demonstrations, rather. So then, how do you bring your skills and your expertise to actually assist that this is a just cause? Yes, to understand, and nobody can actually tamper with the reality of the just cause. But also, how do you then how do you bring law to actually exacerbate and propel these rights to be realized? The issue of the land redistribution, we can't keep quiet as lawyers when the people of Inanda are still in that
Cramped areas.
situation that they're in. Exactly. The issues that are facing Abahlali Basemjondolo, there's an organization called Abahlali Basemjondolo who are fighting for their housing rights. We can't keep quiet and let Human Settlements Department run amok while people are living under unbearable conditions. The issues of ecolobeni, where people really must realize their right to actually influence the mining rights and the mining licensing, to say they must be given a stake in mining. If there's a mining license that's going to be issued, the people of the community must benefit substantially into those mining rights. The issues of Marikana, you can't have people being killed by police officers day in and day out. Recently, we have Mr. Ntumba, who has recently been killed by police officers. How do you then bring those people to work to ensure that justice is realized at all material time? That is our job. That is our duty as legal practitioners.
Oh, thank you so much. That was very motivating, more especially because as people, we have different driving forces, that may result,
Yeah.
that may be a result of the way we grew up or the pressure from our parents or the pressures that we give ourselves. So thank you so much for sharing your driving forces. So just to top up our interview, for a learner that is thinking of considering Bachelor of Law, can you just tell us some fun facts about the course that you're doing?
Oh my goodness, fun facts.
There are
You
any.
are going to fail at some point. You are going to fail at some point. That is a fun fact. You should be sad about that. You know what I mean? If you become sad, then you're gonna become depressed, and then everything is gonna turn out downhill. You understand? So that's just the fun fact about law, that you are at some point going to be at your lowest, and you must accept that, and you must pick yourself up and you must move. But more so, you are going to be exposed into a world of critical thinking where wealth of knowledge is being shared. I'm not a funny guy, so so it's not actually funny, but critical thinking for me is fun, you know what I mean? Because you get to
Your
challenge each
mind.
other based on ideas and ideologies. So the fun fact as well of the law is that we all come from different backgrounds, as you rightfully put it. But what informs how we approach the law is based on our upbringing, right? For instance, people more often than not, people who grew up in suburban areas are most likely to be liberals, and they will approach the law in a liberal kind of like thinking. And people who come from poor backgrounds, or impoverished rather, that's the correct term, impoverished, not poor, sorry, excuse me, impoverished background, they are most likely to come and be decolonizing people. You understand? Say, how do we then decolonize the law and make sure that it's African? And then for me, it's actually like really, really fun, because these other people, you know what I mean? They're coming from middle class. They'll tell you that, you know what? In fact, you know, we are Marxists. We want to approach the law based on a Marxist theory. You know what I mean? To say everyone must be treated like equally and everything of an equal society, classless society. So that is the fun part of it all, because you get to interact with these theories, and you get to find your feet as well to say, in fact, I'm a Marxist. In fact, I'm a Pan-Africanist. In fact, I'm a liberal. So you get to have that thought. You're always thinking. You're always engaging in substantive and critical thinking.
You know, thank you so much. And, you know, speaking, there's a question that actually comes to mind. I would like to challenge you on this one. So, you know, you are a postgrad yourself now. You're enrolled as a postgrad. And I'm sure you remember your first year as a law student, and there are some mistakes that you made. There are some things that when you look back, you're like, I wish I could have done that. I wish I shouldn't have done that. So what words do you have for someone, for a first year student who is currently enrolled to study in a university, for instance?
I think the one thing that I wish I could have done was to read more. Because I only started reading more in the past few years. I wish I could have read more, and I wish I could have interacted more with my colleagues, you know, with my white counterparts, with my Indian counterparts, and everything of that sort. I wish I could have done that more often. Do you understand? But most importantly, I think for any young person that looks into branching into law, just know that law is not a profession that exists in isolation. Hence, I always encourage people to be socially inclined. You must be aware of what is happening inside your society in which you exist, because you would not apply the law successfully or to satisfactory if you do not understand the dynamics in which you live in. For instance, we are going to have a law right now that seeks to amend Section 25 of the Constitution. You know what I mean? As a lawyer, as a young person, you must come back and understand how critical and how important land is, more especially for Black people. So you engage more outside the classroom than you would in the classroom. I'm not saying people must dodge class. No, that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying, for instance, at BITS, you learn more outside than you learn inside the classroom. So I think engaging and opening yourself up and being an extrovert, you know what I mean? Just listen to people, listen more, talk less, gain knowledge from all spheres. Be a listener, be a good listener. A good listener makes a good orator.
Quite interesting. Thank you so much. But we've sadly come to the end of our interview. So thank you so much to our guest speaker, Mr. Nhlanhla Mchunu, all the way from Kwanyusa, eMaqadeni, holding a Bachelor of Law degree. So, Mr. Nhlanhla, before I let you go, can you please tell us the best place for people to connect with you? You know, for example, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Which is the best place for them to connect with you?
I'm old school like that. And I struggle and I want to connect. But I'm available on Facebook, Nhlanhla Mchunu Tonte. I am also available on Instagram, yes. It's Advocate Tonte. So it's ADV_TONTAIR. Advocate Tonte, available on Instagram. Yeah, I think those are the social media platforms from which I'm available. Yes.
I will try by all means to make sure that it gets to our viewers. So thank you so much, Mr. Mchunu. Thank you to everyone for watching this video. Don't forget to comment or ask any questions that you have, or even request any career guidance that you want on the comment section. And as the Lerato Sokheli Foundation, we promise to attend to those comments. And be sure to like this video and share. So that's it from our guest host, Mr. Nhlanhla Mchunu, and myself, Nhlanhla Mchunu, on behalf of the Lerato Sokuli Foundation. Don't forget to tune in next week, Friday, same time, same place, for another career guidance interview brought to you by the Lerato Sokuli Foundation. Good night.